will forever be the Jerry Lewis movie theater.
Yes, I agree.
What? Oh, yeah,
Nancy,
yeah.
You and I are the
yeah.
only ones who
I don't
have
even
that
know
reference.
The tour is
Tour.
now. the restaurant
There was like
tour.
a dollar movie theater.
Oh.
It's the Jerry
For a long
Lewis.
time.
I believe I missed out on the dollar movie.
I saw Dancing
God.
with Wolves in that movie.
Ah,
I
That's
saw
awesome.
Grease there.
Yep, that's how
Yeah.
that was
the
great.
is correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, great
I
reference.
think we need to have a meeting.
All right.
Welcome everyone to the November 7th, 18th meeting of the Portsmouth School Board. Can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Laura Belden.
Here.
Genevieve Beckstead Muskie. Tish Campbell,
Here.
Nancy Clayberg,
Here.
Pip Clues. Brian French,
Here.
Lee Hudson,
Here.
Byron Maddow,
Here.
Carrie Nolte.
Here.
Lisa Rappaport,
Here.
Eric Moore,
Here.
Nathan Delaney.
Here.
And we have our representative from SAU 50.
Yes.
And your name is?
Laura Belden.
Laura,
Yeah,
and you are from?
Ryan.
Hi.
Yeah.
Oh, welcome.
Thanks for
We're
having
happy
me.
to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Okay, shall we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, announcements, recognitions. Zach, do you
I
have?
have a couple coming, but I'm having a hard time pulling them up. So if
Okay.
anybody else has something they want to jump in with.
I do have something. I saw in Seacoast Online that the restaurant on Route 1 that used to be Gibbs Garage is now called 3 Point and Bar Grill. And there are 3 Portsmouth High School graduates that had bought the restaurant and are gonna run it. Hannah D'Angelo, Mike Tamick, and Brianna Bavaro. Do you know any of them?
No, Mrs. Moore does, but they were packed tonight when I drove by.
Oh, nice. Good.
Good.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. 3 Portsmouth High School graduates that are now running a restaurant in Portsmouth. The other announcement I had was our holiday parade is December 6th. Last year we participated, we held the banner and walked down the street. If people want to do that again, let me know. Unfortunately, I'm not available that night, so I cannot participate, but if you want to, I think Byron has the banner.
I have the banner, I was gonna say, I'm keeping the banner, but it's Nutcracker weekend for our family, so we'll be.
Okay,
doing
it's such a
that.
busy time of year.
It is. yeah.
So
It's,
that's not good for you too.
like I said earlier, the calendar is getting
Tight.
very tight, very fast. So.
Well, if we can't do it, we can't do it, but if anybody's interested, I mean, your families could march with you and you can just hold the banner. But let me know if anyone is interested. It's fun. It's an unbelievable
fun.
parade. It really is. I mean, I remember it when it started and it was such a small parade. Now it's this huge. It goes on forever, but it's really cool. Okay, that's what I had.
All right, quick ones for me are just associated with kind of the high school. The marching band earned the gold medal at the New England School Band Association Championship Finals. So congratulations to the marching band. We also had a very successful Model United Nations trip to Boston Latin. And multiple of our students won different awards as part of that process. And I think our Model UN program continues to grow. Cynthia Young, who is a social studies teacher in the high school, put a lot of energy into that and continues to grow and become a bigger and bigger thing. So congratulations to all that.
And I also saw in that newsletter that we have a Clipper community cupboard at the high school, which offers food and household items to any Portsmouth High School student or family if they need a little extra support, particularly at this time. So I thought that was a wonderful thing that's being done at the high school. Did you want to talk about that for a minute?
Well, I was actually just gonna congratulate all the fall athletes. All sports have wrapped up, to my knowledge. Cross country may still be lingering on a little bit. I know the mayor recognized the golf team won state championship, and just in general. Amazing competitiveness this season, another successful one for Portsmouth Athletics, so just wanted to congrats to all. Congrats to all them.
And I would just say in athletics, multiple students signing offers to college programs at the same time. And maybe in the future, we'll have Tom Kozakowski come in and just talk a little bit about like how many of our students are going on to programs, continuing to their athletic careers, because we definitely have a good number. So.
And the last thing I wanted to mention is we have 2 new board members coming on. Congratulations to Steve Adler and Jennifer Shump. They'll be joining us in January. And tomorrow we have an orientation meeting with them, and then the city's doing an orientation meeting, and
And then we're working with the New Hampshire School Boards Association
Hampshire,
to
that's
do
right.
additional training as well.
so hopefully they'll be well informed by the time they come on board, but I'm sure there's always something that you don't remember to do.
When is the
But-
swearing in? What date?
We haven't gotten that
I
notification
don't
yet.
know.
I believe it will be the first Monday in January. Which is, and then our reorganization meeting is that next day, I believe.
So the 6th, I do have as a board meeting, so the 5th would be.
Is that a Monday? Okay, that must be the swearing in. We will all get a letter in the mail, so I'll have to email all of you that won't get one. That's the swearing in, and then our reorganization meeting is the next day, correct? Am I correct about that?
That's correct. And just a reminder that because of the kind of the schedule we're trying to hit in terms of budget, the initial introduction to the binder and a talk through the big rock kind of pieces of the budget will be right after you guys reorganize.
So we sort of have a meeting right after that.
Yes.
Okay,
But that is traditionally,
yeah,
I mean,
that's fine.
not a lot of, it's not tons of give and take that first night. It's really kind of like, here it is, here's the broad overview of what it is, and here's your binder, and we look forward to a bigger conversation.
So mark those down, but I'll confirm them. I'll send everyone an email to confirm those dates, but I'm pretty sure it's the 5th and the 6th. Well, the 6th is definite. The 5th, I believe, is the swearing in.
Congratulations to you, Nancy and Lisa and Brian for their
Thank you.
reelection.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Glad it's over. But it was great. It was a good campaign season, I think, and people were very kind and, gave good information, had good questions. So I think it was a good experience for all. Okay, anything else? Does anybody else have an announcement or recognition? Okay, let's go. Oh, sure, go ahead.
Know, like the Wi-Fi password or anything?
Oh,
How to get
Right
connected?
on the wall.
Right behind.
Amazing. Okay, thank you.
That's the most important question of all. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. Can we have a motion to approve 2 sets of minutes? October 28th, 2025 non-public minutes, and October 25th, 2025 public minutes.
So moved.
Are there any discussion, any changes, any additions, deletions? Okay. We don't have to have a roll call.
Nope.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? Anyone on Zoom for public comment? Oh, Steve Adler? I wonder, does he want to participate? No, he doesn't have his hand raised.
No.
Correct. Okay. Hi, Steve. Welcome.
We'll see you tomorrow, Steve.
Yeah, we'll see you in the morning. Okay.
Raise his hand, but
It went up for a second.
then it disappeared. Okay.
He was waving.
Okay. He was waving. Okay, next, we're at the presentation part where we have the superintendent's report.
So, I will say that the board had asked, I think, for, I just want to make sure we're being responsive.
Yeah.
The board had asked for some additional information in relation to the playground, tennis court areas at New Franklin School. And both Kenny and Brian tonight have other commitments. So we had originally scheduled for a conversation tonight for that to occur. And so we will be doing it. It was part of the agenda that Brian and Nancy had planned, so that is forthcoming. So we have that empty spot for presentations, but it is coming in the future. And our apologies that we realized it late, that we weren't gonna be able to pull that off. In terms of the superintendent's report, it's just the one email, and that was in connection to, also in connection to New Franklin project in general and the CIP. A citizen had reached out and they wanted to understand the sequencing of monies in each of the different fiscal years. And so we had an opportunity to follow up with that citizen request.
Okay, thank you, Zach. And now we'll move on to consideration and approval of policies. That's old business. And I'm gonna turn it over to Byron. We moved it up because we didn't know if Susan was gonna be here, Susan Morel, our attorney, so that's why we moved it up. It usually doesn't happen that fast.
So, yeah, first consideration of some policies that are second reading. First is the policy IHBI. And if we have a motion to pass second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Ryan moved, Harry second, got it.
Hinge vote.
So just to refresh, IHBI was alternative learning plans. And I believe this went back to policy around some question of the language for designee.
Superintendent or designee.
Yep.
And I think there's a typo actually, and I'm not the person who finds typos. It's very exciting for me. On line 79, oh, that's a different policy. Never mind, we'll come back to the policy. Yeah, so that was, I think, corrected in the last policy committee meeting and should be reflected in this policy. As superintendent or their designees, yep. 124.
Right. Okay. Do you want to continue?
Yeah, any discussion? Okay, with that, maybe we'll call the vote. No, call the vote. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to IHCA, which was the summer activities. And I believe the feedback on this was to let's see. Add reference to IHBA and IK, which we did in the last policy. So I guess we need a motion to approve second reading of IHCA.
Second.
Harry, thank you.
Any discussion? All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
need
Oh,
to-
sorry.
Sorry, just give me 1 second.
Yep.
I'm just struggling with that real long sentence.
What number?
Line 9.
9 through 13 is one sentence.
Oh,
That's
Oh, no, it's
No,
two,
there's a
it's two.
period after
Okay,
the
okay,
IK.
maybe that helps me. Tuition comments to our high school is provided in.
Splits it's two.
Okay, I'm good, sorry.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor of second reading IHCA?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, IJ, this is the typo. Looking for a motion to approve instructional resources IJ.
Second.
So it looks on 79, it says designees. An extra I in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Designee is, so there's a space missing.
Oh, that's-
It's the formal British way of spelling it.
so, yeah.
there you go.
Did you catch that? Who caught that? You did, wow.
Which is rare. And I don't recall the exact edit we made the last, when we brought it back. But
It's lines 21 and 22. The Portsmouth School Board
Yes.
designates the superintendent instead of, because previously it said the school board is responsible for.
right, and the statute had this specific language, which was the school board designates the superintendent. Any discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote to approve second reading of IJ. All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Okay. So new business, this is first reading, although really isn't first reading. You've talked about, this before, but I think we talked to council about, this and she felt that first reading was appropriate, given the changes that we made and that we're sort of bringing back as like a new. And also she mentioned that, because we're mandated to be in compliance, that the rule that would prevent us from revisiting policy that hasn't changed would sort of, I guess, be deferential to that. So with that, we'll look for a motion to approve first reading of JBAB.
So moved.
Second.
Right. And some discussion. Lisa?
can you, no, go ahead. I was gonna say, can you say the changes, but no, go with it. We all know what the changes.
So I have one question about this. We have some policies where we sort of put in there some sort of language that says whatever the procedures are that are ultimately implemented will be shared at some future date with the board. Like I think, for example, that's in our suicide prevention plan. Do you feel like it would be feasible with this to have some sort of report back once we figure out how we're gonna operationally do this, to just have some sort of report back? And I don't know if that needs to be in the policy, but I'm just curious about this since this would be a big change for kids.
Yeah, I would say, I would suggest keeping it out of the policy only because it would be one of those things where it's an appendage that later is, you know, you're like, you know what I mean? And instead, just, you know, the board informing me, we want to report back and this is what we want by such and such a date that does whatever we want it to do. But I wouldn't keep it, I wouldn't put it in the policy only because I think we've had some policies sometimes where it will reference like by 2000 and, you know, by January 1st, 2017, we were like we're in 2022. And it was like, why is that still there? And it probably was exactly this type of moment. But that would be my suggestion, but it's all, you know, per view.
Okay, I was just curious about that.
Prerogative.
I think the other thing that I am curious about, because I do feel that for students, this is an abrupt departure from the type of safe space in our schools that they have been assured that they have, particularly when they show up for the GSA clubs and they're participating in activities where they are automatically disclosing their identity and what they believe to be a safe space. Can we consider adding language that says we will notify students of the policy changes in plain language as soon as it's passed? Because I don't want to create a situation where we're kind of waiting for the handbooks to come out in the fall.
Very reasonable.
And I think for a student who might overnight find that their privacy is gone when they previously thought they had it, I feel like we need to really go the extra mile to do proactive communication to kids.
Great.
Do you feel like there's any type of language that we could add? I mean, I don't want to waste energy on emotion if others don't think that's worth the.
I wonder if the motion would come, so this is first reading. I wonder if we get through first reading, the motion could come as an independent action of the board relative to, I don't know if that's doing what you want, but yeah.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
Um,
I'm sorry.
well, it seemed like well, in terms of the report back and the action plan from the administration.
The report back, I can totally understand why that wouldn't necessarily go in this policy. Like, I feel like at some point we could just ask the question and have a conversation.
Yeah.
But in terms of notifying students, I would like it, if others are amenable to it, to be a requirement of the policy. I think if we're requiring them to lose their privacy, that we should be at least required to proactively tell them.
Yeah,
That's the
I'm,
case.
yeah,
And not have
I'm,
it be like a maybe we'll come up with something a month later, because we could have really good intentions, but it could
Yeah.
take a long
Yeah.
time to refine that.
I'd be supportive of language in that direction. I just don't know how you would,
Okay.
in
I
a
mean,
policy, say that you need to notify that the policy has changed. I think,
I
yeah,
feel like that would be more, I mean, is that something that you're
Well,
Well, but it said so.
able to do? I mean, is that something you're able to like verbally agree to do? This-
I think I understand the depth of concern about this policy in particular. About kind of, this has been I don't know, it's been like a 2-year odyssey. Right, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way, like this has been a real hard one to navigate for a long time. And I think there's elements of what the law is asking us to do that some of us are uncomfortable with in some ways. So I think to be respectful of that concern, I'm not opposed to including language in here. I think it's just that the fact that it's one-time language. It'll be a one and done, but so whatever you want to do with that, and I understand Lisa want to make sure it's in there, because it makes it feel like more of a guarantee that's gonna happen. But I also think too, which could be part of the second reading conversation, we could come back with what we believe is our plan about how we're gonna communicate, and have that on the night that we talk about it for a second read, and make sure it's in your packets in advance of that meeting, so you have an opportunity to review that prior to
Okay.
passage.
I guess I'm thinking something really simple, and I'm not sure what the right wording is, but in the way at the very end where we simply say professional development and training will be provided. I guess I'm just looking for some simple, outreach to students will be immediately, students will be immediately updated to changes in their privacy protections, or something like that, so that they know. Because there's kids who have confided in people who work in our buildings who will now be in a position where if a parent
Right.
calls, they can no longer maintain that privacy. And that's just,
Right, so they're already in.
it's the law, and I get
Right.
it, but you can't retroactively uncome out in the GSA now that we have a law that says your privacy is gone.
Byron.
Oh, Lee, is your?
oh, Lee, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
First of all, there's actually a spelling error in this one. On line 53, district personnel is only one N in it. Also wanted to ask, because and maybe I'm just forgetting, but it says students shall be informed of any request for information related to their gender and identity or expression. Who are those? Who would be actually requesting that?
So.
And do we have any limits to that?
So the language that's being added here
Yeah.
is intentional to inform students of essentially their parent or guardian reaching out to the district for this information, because that's in the statute, the big change in the statute was that under the parental rights laws, that they have the right to request that information. And so what this language is trying to do is to add some deference and agency for the student, so they're aware of that.
Okay, it was confusing to me because it actually is a little bit more clearer in sentence 2, but it is not as clear in sentence 1. And when I say sentence 1, line 50, 51 versus 50.
Yeah,
You want to make sure we're not saying like if a third party calls.
Right. Yep.
We're not revealing that information to some third party.
Yeah, and we're not saying that we would, I'm just saying
But
it's
in
not
terms of
very.
clarity,
Yeah, I'm saying it's not very clear in terms of the way this is worded, at least not in.
Yeah, it's just, it's definitely intended to give the students agency if someone has made a request in that regard. And then the second sentence is sort of an independent thought, which is that when that happens, the district personnel will offer an opportunity with the student and the parents and the district personnel to have that discussion. So sort of offering a what's the word?
Facilitated, yeah.
Moderated discussion. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Brian,
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to what Lisa's asking for. But in absence of having like any good language, maybe we can go back for the second reading and you guys could discuss it back in
Yeah,
policy.
I completely in support of what you're
I
after,
think
Lisa,
language,
yeah.
But I think Nate's got his
Okay.
hand up, so I'll wait.
I guess what I'm trying to think of is what you seem to be outlining is more like the procedure of which the schools go through and go act on this policy. So what if it was just something from Zach from the board saying to each principal, to each guidance office, whichever body we chose, saying this would be a part procedurally of how this policy is implemented in the school rather than simple one-time language in the policy itself.
Typically, that's what I would encourage, right? The separation of what's procedure and what's policy and keeping those things separate. But I also, I simultaneously appreciate the how concerning the moment is that we're at for some folks and I want to be respectful of that too. I would say typically that would always be my advice.
Yeah.
Policy is one thing, sets the overall goals and whatever, and procedure, is over on the administrative side, but I also understand the real concern about.
Right, I understand that too, so.
We do have a policy committee meeting December 3rd, and our next school board meeting is December 9th.
But if
So,
we have language, we could approve that right now.
okay,
Yeah, so if Lisa gets some.
I'm not sure where to stick it, but I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, because I appreciate we want to let people in the buildings figure out
I
how to
think I
do
might have
it.
an idea
Do you have an
where to
idea?
put it.
Okay,
And if you take section J, call it professional development, comma, training and notification.
yeah, I think that could work.
And then, well, I don't know what your line says.
I don't
but-
know if this is quite right. I can make a formal motion, but I'm just gonna spit it out first, just to
Yeah.
see what people think. I'm just thinking something simple, like students shall be advised that their parents have a right to request information about their gender identity and expression. So that it's
yeah.
not dictating how it happens, but I think
Can you
that
read
that
that,
would.
you read that again?
So I will make a motion now, if that seems like it's,
Before you make the motion, can I just,
sorry.
are we just having a blanket, or are we saying at the beginning of a program, at the beginning of the school year, right now? I would like to see
That's a good question.
something about when it happens.
I think the day after this passes, we need to proactively tell kids, especially the kids who are in our GSAs and who may have the assumption of privacy that's gone. I just don't think it's acceptable to have them be unaware of the
Could
change.
you reread that? Because I'm thinking
Um,
maybe you append it with something like, and anytime there are changes made to this policy.
I think, with most policies, we do update annually. I know for hypothetically, now I have two high schoolers who possibly haven't read that handbook. I'm sure they're the only two in the building that's.
Yeah,
true
everyone
for.
else has read the handbook.
But I feel like
Cover to cover.
as much as we
Memorized.
wish that that was something they read, they don't. So
and parents don't either.
that's fair. But just because of that, I just feel like, what I would envision is that maybe you actually talk to the students who are in some of these clubs where it's obvious that they need to know, and then maybe after that, figure out how else to share the information.
generally.
I think somebody thought maybe an advisory or in some other way, just so that we take an extra step.
Yep.
So I guess what I had said, Tish, was just students shall be advised that their parents have a right to request information about their gender identity and expression. And school has to answer truthfully or something. I don't know if we need to add the second piece or not, but just to make it really clear to kids. And I think I agree with you, Patty, like if we stuck it right at the end. where it
Professional
was-
development, training and
Yeah, I think that-
notification.
I think it's
Just
works.
put it
That
right
fair.
there.
Yeah.
Do you want to make an amendment to the motion?
What am I amending?
That we're adding this,
We have a motion on the
Okay,
floor.
sorry.
Table, so
You're good. So we have a
Yeah.
motion on the
a friendly amendment.
Friendly.
And so friendly amendment, to add the language, I think,
I
yeah.
think if that's a friendly amendment that people are amenable to, yes,
Make-
otherwise we
Maker of the
can.
motion.
Tish and
Did you
Brian.
get it all?
I'm good with it.
I did, But
I'm allowed to make suggestions,
yeah.
but does it need to say parents or guardian?
Yeah, that's a good catch. Cause it is anybody who has legal,
Parent / guardian.
yep.
Right.
so what I have is
Okay, yes, that's what I was just gonna ask.
the friendly amendment from Lisa is at the end of J, new sentence being students shall be advised that their parents or guardians have a right to request information about their gender identity. Is that what you said?
Yes, and expression,
An expression.
since this policy is all the
And we're
things.
changing the subtitle for J to professional development, comma, training and notification.
Okay.
All of that together.
Okay,
You can even say, and the school is required to provide that information. Like, they have the right to ask. That doesn't mean it's gonna be answered, but it will
Yeah.
because the school's
I
required.
was trying not to make too long a sentence. I guess we
Yeah.
need to also say this, students should also be advised that school officials are required to answer.
Yes, the way the statute, yeah, no, I think it's a good thing to say.
Yeah.
I think the way the statute is that the district needs to answer with, gosh, I forget, I think this is, we can dictate.
Well, it's very
yeah,
contradictory, right? Cause it's thorough, complete,
Yeah,
and within 10 days and truthful, I think are the 4 pieces. I don't remember
Timely,
in
yeah.
which order.
Timely, yeah.
mm,
And immediate.
Yes.
Yeah, that was in there too. So if you put them all together, they don't really fit. But-
Within 10 days is immediate.
Well, if you read it, it literally has all, I think, of those pieces in the same sentence.
so.
I don't remember.
Yeah. So what I have now is students shall be advised that their parents or guardians have a right to request information about their gender identity and expression. Students should also be advised that the district is required to answer this request.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's plain language enough and simultaneously, plain language doesn't create any problems, I think.
Who made the second to the motion?
Brian,
Yeah.
Do you accept the friendly?
Yep.
Okay.
I think, oh, I need to vote on the amendment. So I'm gonna take discussion on the amendment. Okay, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
So we're back to the motion. Further discussion on first read of JBAB. Call the vote, first read of JBAB. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Passes, okay.
Byron, can you send me that language
Got it,
so
yep.
that I can get it into the minute? Thank you.
Okay, moving on to first reading of changes to parental notification and involvement in student welfare, JLP. Looking for a motion to approve first read.
So moved.
Second.
So just this one, this one, I believe we pruned it to be as close to just reciting the statute as possible. So this is basically just, like I said, regurgitating what the statute is around the parental notification law. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving JLP first read?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed? Passes. Okay,
So both of those we bring back for second reading at the December.
that is correct.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay, thank
everybody.
And
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I think what's important too for students to hear is that we remain committed to supporting our non-CIS students. You know, that's all of our students, but particularly students who are who could be affected by this change of policy. So I think we want to continue to be a welcoming environment, but it's more than welcoming. It's a supportive environment at the same time. And so I think, you know, I don't want the community to think that this is a abdicating of that position.
That
So-
recognized that.
Agreed. I don't think there's anyone on here that.
I don't think that's where this board is, and I don't think it's reflective of the community. That's not, we're just turning the page on a lot of progressive work that has been done to make sure that as students are considering their gender identity, their expression, that we are supportive as an institution. And the law is creating challenges for us to do that in the same way that we progress to kind of organically. But I think we're still, as an institution, as a group of people who work for us, and as a community, I think we're still committed to supporting all students, and particularly students who are gonna be potentially impacted by this change in approach in the law. So.
And I just want to thank the policy committee, Byron and Pip, for working so hard on this with our legal teams, both here at City Hall and the Wadley Star people. It's been a long process, and also all of you board members that have participated in the conversation. So it's been a long journey, but we're coming to an end, so.
Well, I think we're coming to an end in this moment.
Right, you never know.
I don't think that the policy or the legal questions connected to these issues are done. I think as a, you know, national and state and local kind of political community, these are not conversations that are completely over. I don't think either, so.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, we'll move on to new business, the school calendar.
So,
Here.
so I will say that the setup of this one was really difficult for us to do. The combination of the latest possible Labor Day placement you can have on the calendar and 2 election dates falling inside as well. We've got both the primary and the general. And we did a bunch of survey work with staff, and I think this sentiment is reflective of what we've gotten in conversations with families. The desire to not put us in a spot where we hit Juneteenth, and then we've got like 2 days after Juneteenth, or 1 day, or staff, you know, have to come back a day after Juneteenth. There's a real desire to like create a buffer there for us. So we did a lot, and I will say that this was in the past, we have not done a lot of survey work or conversation with staff beyond principals really about a lot of this stuff. We had several survey sets going back and forth with staff around iterative process around how to develop this. This does put us in a position where we hit all our contractual guidelines. We hit our guidelines with the state. It does shuffle where our teacher workshops days are a little bit compared to where they normally are. They're not spread out in exactly the same way, because one of the ways in which we made all this work was to take both of the election days and turn those into teacher workshop days, so that we weren't losing more time on the calendar, and staff was supportive of that as a concept. I think that's it. So we've got a couple day buffer on the back end. I think everyone on the staff side, we did lose one component that has been at least as long as I've been here, and I think goes back many years before me, was that we've had this kind of slow build to the beginning of students coming in. And usually typically a few days, 3 or 4 days, then the Friday before Labor Day off. So everybody goes off for a 4-day weekend, and then we come back, and now we do one more 4-day week, and then we're into a full week. That has been kind of what's happened. I don't know, Eric, do you know how long that goes? As long as you've been here, right?
Yeah, it's a long way.
Right, so it goes back a little ways. That was the thing they had to give in order to make the rest of this kind of work this time around, so. Happy to take any questions.
I have
Yeah.
a question. Is there any way we can secure the voting area so that our students are locked out from, or the voters are locked out from our students?
So we've had some conversations about kind of doing that. I think right now, particularly because of the spaces that are used in our elementaries, it's really hard. It's hard to do in a way that we feel you know, so at this point, now we have not re-engaged that conversation in a while. We did a couple of years ago, we went back to the city and we're having conversations about, aren't there alternative venues that we could use that are not schools to do voting? And I think the city was pretty committed to the system they already had in place, and to part of that is connected to wards and ward locations, but there was not a lot of receptivity to considering alternative non-school based polling stations, just because of the logistics involved for them. So, but we have not re-engaged that. It's been 2 years since 3 years, maybe it goes back 3 years since we really had we had like a high level conversation about that as a possibility.
And honestly, I think as a past parent, I would not be comfortable with my kids in school where even if it was a secure area that people wander and they can bring weapons in.
I think a lot of people would keep their kids home.
Yeah. I think it is, what you did, I think is probably the best alternative to what we have.
And when we initially did this, because if you remember, I think that first, I think it was right when I walked in the door that summer, we were dealing with this change from the State House saying that they wanted local law enforcement officials to ignore federal gun laws, which is an interesting decision by the state. And I think our PD has been willing to work with us as far as they can go. They are willing to do what they need to do in order to make places safe. Initially, when that happened, we also said we're not going to have staff in those buildings at that time either. I think, and that's part of why we were having some of the survey stuff back and forth with staff. I think we've been moving slowly towards staff feeling like, okay, we're going to go ahead and do this for now, and we'll keep monitoring whether or not we feel safe about it. But that was something that I think came through in the survey work that we did. The staff was like, this is what we need to do in order to reach these other goals. We're willing to come in and do that.
As an alternative for the staff, could a teacher's workshop day be set up in a school that does not have the voting?
So we could do, depending on what's going on, sometimes it's like we could do if it's not a general election, then we don't use they don't use the high school as a polling place. So it could be.
We did that
had-
this past month, so on November 4th, because we had elections running on all of the elementary schools, there was no parking at the elementary schools for the teachers. So we had to find an alternate location because of the way that our professional development was set up to have, because we're doing aligned curriculum, so we want everybody together. So we had everybody at the high school. And so it's all these puzzle pieces, and sometimes they fit and sometimes you got a few that you leave on the table and you're like, well, it kind of looks like a flower, but there's a couple pieces left.
And I will say that one of the things in here that will make it at an extra degree of difficulty, and it was a back and forth conversation with principals, was in order to make our parent-teacher conferences work. One of those election days is a parent-teacher conference, it's a teacher workshop day and a parent-teacher conference day. So we definitely had some back and forth, but I think that it was a clear consensus. We can make this happen. We're confident we can make it work. We'll have to work out the logistics of like what doors are people coming in and that type of stuff. But the principals felt that they could make it happen. Not everyone's favorite, and once we get out of, we go back to the next year, we'll be on just a primary, I think the next year. And then and we won't have the funky Labor Day thing going on. So we'll probably move away from some of this stuff the next year, so you won't be in the same pinch.
I know that, or I recall in the past that part of the issue with the start date is other teacher contracts in other districts that maybe people have their children at. Contractually, they start after Labor Day. I'm wondering if that was something that came up in your,
So I will say one curveball that could happen on this, which would change everything, is some conversation at the State House right now, because we love the State House doing stuff. That conversation has been about floating the idea that they would mandate that no communities can start school until after Labor Day. So that has not come to fruition yet, but just so you know, we could be coming back to the table and saying, oh, well, this was a great plan, but now based on the state, we're gonna go way past Juneteenth, because we're gonna have to deal with the post Labor Day thing. So that, like I said, that's still kicking around, but as of right now, that's not the case.
but has it been something that teachers are worried about for their own kids?
Well, I mean, I definitely have people when we're a border community and you have like February breaks are different than Maine. Same thing with April, right? Most of the time, April, we have the occasional year where we're on the same. But most of the time we are a February and April, we're off from what they're doing. And that does create some challenges for some staff. But I don't know that there's a way for us to get around that, because as soon as we make the change in that direction, two things. There is an expectation at the state level that we have some alignment around February and April breaks because of what happens with CTE centers around the state. So if we were to break loose from the New Hampshire kind of set calendar around the weeks in order to join Maine, then we have all the people who live in all the other communities that work, they're a teacher in Seabrook or Exeter or wherever, and now they're not aligned with their kids. So to answer your question, yes, it is challenging for some staff. I don't know how we get around that. I would say that we don't have, as a result of that, we don't have like massive poor attendance from staff who are in those other communities. It is a strain, and we definitely hear from folks that it's a strain. But it's not been something where, the first couple days of school, 25% of our staff isn't showing up.
Yeah.
Zach, to piggyback off of what Carrie was talking about,
Yeah.
do you guys work to align with SAU 50 when you're doing the calendar?
So we try to, although it's challenging because not every community in SAU 50 has the same start date. So in this case, so Steve's been sent a copy of this and knows this is the first night of conversation.
I was gonna say, usually I feel like we know Portsmouth's calendar.
Yeah.
And then we try to match Portsmouth. And I feel like I thought that's what Greenland and Newington and Newcastle did too, but that's usually how it's presented to us. So we try to match Portsmouth when we can.
Yeah.
Partially for those reasons, or like right now I have a kid at Portsmouth High School and a kid at Wright Elementary, right? So even within the same family, two different kids.
And where are you guys on your timeline for passage of?
I don't think we've talked, we have a meeting tomorrow and I haven't looked at the agenda, but I don't think we've talked about the calendar yet.
Yes, yeah, I think Steve understood that we were coming for first conversation. So.
I remember a few years back, we talked about not having February and April vacation, and having one vacation in March.
We surveyed staff about that.
That didn't
There was
go well.
not,
That would-
there were not a lot of huge takers on the March only thing.
Go ahead, your turn.
Just to be clear on all the early release days is a professional development as well, right?
Yeah.
That's for everybody out there. And then my son's gonna ask you how many school days we're gonna have off from snow, but I won't ask you that. Is it gonna?
Built in a 2-day buffer.
So the idea is if you're gonna push the teacher workshop out along with the days behind it, if school days.
So we got
extend
beyond,
beyond-
creeping up to Juneteenth.
Well, let's say you have right now, last day of school the 14th, right?
Yep.
So would you have let's say we had one snow day, then it would be, last day would be that Tuesday and then teacher workshop on Wednesday. Just kind of all push out,
It
right?
all pushes out.
Other than that Juneteenth.
Right.
Which we have to wrap around that somehow.
Right, and this year it's celebrated on the 18th. Yeah. So that would be the push. Now, there's always perennially, we have the question about hours. And to what extent do within state regs, this is a possibility of doing hours. Our problem right now is around our CBA with our paraprofessionals. And so if we were gonna go hours, we would, I'm sorry, paraeducators, not paraprofessionals, paraeducators. If we were to go with hours in terms of the calendar requirements, and let's say we were gonna eat a couple snow days, and so because we do more instructional time than is required on a daily basis. Then we could do that, but based on our contract, we would end up paying that class of employees who are hourly employees for time not worked. And so we're trying to figure that out with that association. Because it puts us in a spot where it's difficult for me as a fiscal steward of the taxpayer's dollar to just say, well, we'll just eat that cost. Even though we respect those employees tremendously, but I think that's a difficult one for me to do.
Lisa.
So I don't know if this needs to go on this version of the calendar, but I'm curious because this has come up from parents quite a lot of whether by the time we are close to the start of school, the calendar can specify on the calendar when are those parent-teacher conferences and when are the half days for exams at the high school, which I know is also sometimes a little fluid, but I think it catches people by surprise every year.
Yeah.
And maybe right now we don't know, but I'm wondering if we do kind of know by August, if we might be able to consider an update.
Yeah, I
Because
think,
it doesn't go on here ever.
Right,
And then people are
right,
like, what do you mean
right.
there's?
no, I think we could definitely explore that because I think, like I said, we already know that on this, in terms of the conversation behind the scenes, that, let me pull my copy back up, that I think it's the general election date is the date of elementary
Right.
parent-teacher conferences. The date that is it's the PD day in January. Is that right? I'm sorry, I don't have my copy.
Yep, 22nd,
So that date is the
secondary.
crossover date at the high school from the 91st day or whatever it is, the high school, the middle point. That would be parent-teacher conferences at the middle would be held on that particular day. And then the 2 days preceding that would be exam half days at the high school. So
Just to get closer, I just think it's helpful.
yeah,
for
no,
people
it's
to see,
good.
is it-
Just to have people have it on the.
Yeah.
Any other, oh,
I just have one quick thing. I'm assuming this is because it's a draft that this is the case, but do you have the page of holidays that would be on?
It's gonna be attached to the back.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's coming back. I didn't put it on here, but that same thing, I think we want to maintain that reference point for staff as we're planning stuff to be thoughtful about those holidays for folks. Yeah.
that was gonna be my question. Question, Nate.
Yeah.
Stole it from you, Nancy.
Any other questions? Do we need to vote on this or?
I think based on policy, I think they do. I gotta go back and look at it.
Figures in action, so.
Well, so I would say, I think we anticipated 2 readings, but I do think you need to
think
vote
there is a
on the
vote.
final version.
Yeah, usually there is a vote.
Yeah, so what we anticipated was we'd bring it back to you at the next meeting.
Okay.
Had an opportunity to review it. And that might also put us in a spot where we have a little bit more clarity around SAU 50, where SAU 50 is and its process as well, and make sure that we don't have any red flags. That, at this point, that's what I've asked. That's what I had asked for Steve. Any major red flags for you in terms of what I've got so far. So
Okay, so we'll look for it on the next meeting's agenda.
sounds good.
Okay. All right, moving on. Wow. Committee updates. We have policy committee minutes from October 22nd and November 3rd, and Teaching and Learning Committee meetings from November 3rd. Do you want to talk about that a little bit or?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We did do another update on focus area 1, and the progress we're making there. Talked a little bit about the professional development at the elementary level, which happened on November 4th. And some of the work that's happening at the high school with aligning with the 306 rules that we're talking a lot about at policy, which is the minimum standards for public school approval. Those have all been updated and changed, so there's a lot of work going on around that. And then Jackie Chisholm also gave an update on some of the new courses in the Clipper Learning Center. And we're gonna set the date for the next meeting once the reorg happens in January. So.
Okay. And just, when is that next city council meeting to talk about the?
So in terms of the CIP process, where we're
Yes.
at, so on Thursday night, the planning board meets independent of the, so up to this point, years ago, not that long, a couple years ago, the planning board used to meet independently and they'd be working independently to develop a proposal that they're sending to the city council for consideration. So over the last 2 times now, those 2 groups have been meeting together to hear from department heads about what are these things that folks are proposing. So they have had now, they had the workshop that we did together, which was the initial presentation. So that was done. Last night was the public hearing. So it was the opportunity, it was an invitation to the community, please come out and tell us what you think of this draft. Now, the draft, important to know, the current draft includes a proposal that we recommended for New Franklin School. So we don't have to, right now, we don't have to necessarily fight to get it in, but we want to monitor and continue to advocate for it to stay right where it is. So anyway, so tomorrow night, sort of Thursday night, the planning board meets independently, have some conversation about what they want to propose to the council. The things that I've heard from planning board members, there hasn't been a lot of discussion about New Franklin as part of the questions and things they've talked about. I've definitely heard some stuff from them around parking, around some of those types of issues. So we'll see how much activity there is or changing that happens on Thursday night. Then the council meets again on December 8th to finalize, to consider the proposal from the planning board, and then to finalize the plan, the capital improvement plan for this year. Again, that's a 6-year plan. I know someone had asked me, what would that mean? And I had a citizen ask me this the other night. I said, so if we come and they pass it now, does that mean we're totally all set with the New Franklin plan forever? He was like, no. Welcome to citizenhood. But I think it pretty much would lock in. We already have the money for the first phase of the plan as presented by the folks that we had on September 9th. And if the community wants to know more about the proposal, that's what I would suggest. People should go and watch the tape from September 9th, because you had Mike Davies from energy efficiency investments and the chief architect from Danwell Architects, Ingrid, was there, were both there to describe the project and the process we'd gone through to imagine it. So I would encourage that. But this would basically, once the council votes this in, this would pretty much then make sure that phase 2 was also in there. And they're saying on paper phase 3 would happen. But next year, everyone needs to come back out again and make sure that they're continuing to be like, this should stay, because projects can move around. We can have one plan and then we can have shifting ideas. And so we would need to stay with it. The other thing I'd mention is, I think that so far, to me, it appears the council is pretty receptive to this as a need and something that they want to do. We're also in final conversations around the council and them touring those elementary facilities as well. So far, so good.
So
But we should keep paying attention.
And if school board members can attend that meeting on December 8th at 7 p.m. to talk about New Franklin, that would be wonderful. Lisa and I were there last night.
Yes, that was good.
And several New Franklin parents. So it was a good turnout, I think, last night. The parents are passionate and really.
And multiple New Franklin parents were at the work session as well. So I think it's, I think it really helps the council as they start trying to think through prioritization to hear from people around particular issues like that.
A lot of teachers and staff came out.
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Joanne Simon.
Yep.
Principal was there. It was a good turnout.
Just as a suggestion for
Yes.
future and separate from this, but I think it'd be really beneficial for new board members to tour all of the schools.
Absolutely agree.
Because there's just so much learning in that process, even
Yeah.
because you just have a different eye for it.
Yeah.
So just going forward. True.
And
Okay.
numbers.
And-
Lee, did you and I go around and hit all the buildings?
Yeah, and then everybody else did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After that, we kind
Yeah.
of, everybody else was
Yeah.
interested.
But I think that's a great suggestion that part of that coming on is actually having an opportunity to be in the spaces, see what we're doing, that type of thing. Yep, agreed.
It's just, I think it's like as a New Franklin parent, like I just assumed all the schools looked like New Franklin. Like until I saw differently, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, there's just something about whatever you see, you're like, oh, yeah, this looks like a school. All the schools look like this school and.
Right. Yeah. And then when you have an opportunity to walk through some other spaces, you're like, woo, okay. You know, one of these does not look like the others. So, yeah.
Okay.
Nancy, if you could just make a note, December 1st, the city's master plan committee has a meeting. It's the third full-on one after various open houses, so I'll throw in a committee updates thing for that, so for our December 9th meeting.
On what?
The,
Master plan?
yeah, every 10 years.
What are we gonna do without you? Everything's.
I'm sure you got an invitation. I feel like it's sort of
Okay, well, you can give us an update, Nathan, okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Be great. Okay, we have one meeting left this year, December 9th. So we will conclude our business for these past 2 years. Does anyone have any future agenda requests for that meeting? Yes.
I have a request. I think it may be more appropriate for the policy committee, but I think as many of you may have seen in the paper during the government shutdown and the cut of SNAP benefits, Exeter School Board acted quite quickly to provide universal free meals in their district. Now, they were in a unique situation. They provided this specifically for elementary students. And for some reason, it's a bit unclear to me, had a $600,000 surplus when they did this. So there was a pot of money that they were looking to spend. But in talking to other school boards around the state who were contemplating whether they'd like to be potentially ready for anything that might occur in January, that could negatively impact our community, if it would be possible to have a policy in place that just simply empowered our superintendent to consider temporarily providing free meals as needed in the event of an unforeseen. I don't even know what we say next, because who knows what that's gonna look like, but it wouldn't say that we're automatically doing it.
Yeah.
But it also gives the city a little bit more ability to look for funds to help support that if we have a policy that says it's the will of our board. So I wonder if the policy committee, which obviously needs more to do, because there's not enough policies, but if we were able to come up with something short and sweet that was, just putting that sort of value statement on paper, it would give us a little bit more ability to potentially maneuver in the future if we need to. Because the reality is kids are not going to fill out those forms if they're hungry. And,
Good
that's all.
suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Oh, reopen the public comment. Anyone here for public comment? I will close the public comment motion. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? What? Wow. 5 minutes after.
Well, what happens when you have.
Don't get used to this.
Yeah.
This doesn't
That's
happen.
the beauty of having a presentation or two canceled.